Okay, this module is prior restraint, and the first thing you should do before you do anything else is read Chapter 4 in the book. It goes over the basic concepts of prior restraint, which I will elaborate on in my presentation. One of the first things to kind of get a grip on going into this is to just sort of understand why this is so important that we talk particularly about prior restraint. And the reason it's important is because it is, in effect, keeping you from doing something. It basically is not this idea of like, okay, you do something and then you face the consequences or you get punished for it. This is kind of, the government saying you can't do this in the first place. And you'll see that that's sort of something that's seen as particularly egregious by courts. And so prior restraint is, something that is not looked upon favorably by most courts. However, we do see situations where it does come into play. So after the presentation, you will see there are some links. There's a link to the actual Progressive article if you want to look at that. There's a link to the Pentagon Papers case. And I also put a couple of interesting links up there that sort of deal with some of the more modern prior restraint issues. One of them has to do with the idea of 3D printing, and you can essentially now 3D print a gun. And so there's a question about whether that is basically a form of speech and whether the government can restrict that. And then also there's an article that talks about, we hear in the news from time to time Google or Twitter or, even Facebook, like a social media organization, will essentially be called upon to delete somebody's posts or prior restrain somebody from posting something or, delete accounts and those kind of things. And so these are sort of some of the questions that kind of have to do with prior restraint that we could be facing going forward. So enjoy prior restraint, and then afterwards there is a discussion question.